It's been a tense few days for India and Pakistan at the United Nations General Assembly. We know External Affairs Minister Sushma Swarajs launched a scathing attack on Pakistan, accused it of creating terrorist outfits like Lashkar-e-Taiba, etc. Pakistan retaliated in a counter-attack called India the mother of terrorism. How do we place it in the larger context of India-Pakistan ties, and what does this really mean for the larger equation as it were? I have with me Pranab Samanta, our editor, who is going to explain what it means. Pranab, let me begin by throwing open a very, very provocative question. Are we fixated with Pakistan?
I would definitely not dismiss that question, because this has become a bit of a ritual at the United Nations.
Right.
If I might dare say so, that bit like the UNGA ritual. So we have to do it. It happens year on year, and both sides kind of go at each other's throat, and it's a question of who drafts better English, better lines, and we all show off our. But that's, having said that, what we cannot take away from the table is that the state of India-Pakistan relationship is at an all-time low at this point in time. Number two, the points which Indian External Affairs Minister Sushma Swarajs raised has some merit in it, and apart from the naming and shaming, she actually also recalls certain important points in the last 3 years, which includes her own visit to Islamabad for the Heart of Asia Summit, where she said that there was an agreement to start a comprehensive bilateral dialogue. They actually agreed to call it a comprehensive bilateral dialogue, because the word bilateral held a certain connotation to it. She puts that on record, and she says that Pakistan walked away from it, and so those are important points which are mentioned in the speech, which also show that India is not closed the door of dialogue altogether.
Right. Well, we do know Pakistan raised Kashmir. We also know that as per the Shimla Agreement, as per the Lahore Declaration, Kashmir is an issue that is to be resolved bilaterally. How does this play out in terms of these agreements?
You mean to say the conversation?
Yes, the raising of
No, see, at one level it is ritualistic, all right? So I think the impact of what happens in these kind of speeches has been limited over a period of time. We've not seen anything derail because of these things. It does create a certain environment which kind of dissipates after some time. However, the issue has reached that point that both of them one has held on to terror, the other is holding on to Kashmir. More importantly, Pakistan seems to believe that it has a new Kashmir argument on its table.
Right.
And many in India would also have been critical of the government on way things have panned out in Kashmir.
Right.
So the Pakistanis are really trying to fish in those waters and trying to revive the old Kashmir argument at the UN. I don't think it's getting them anywhere, because Pakistan's track record as of now is not very credible on any of these issues. But having said that, it's important for Pakistan to realize that and understand that the whole world needs Pakistan to have a serious conversation on terror.
Right.
And there is no point skirting around that issue.
Right. Well, that actually brings me to my next question. We know Pakistan's ambassador Maliha Lodhi displayed a picture which she claimed showed the Indian state's atrocities in Kashmir, which we also now know is definitely not a picture from Kashmir. Does it erode Pakistan's credibility?
Surely, I mean, today the Pakistan, I think, UN mission in New York tweeted saying these are real pictures.
They're real for sure. But
no. There are fresh pictures which the Twitter account has loaded, and definitely it shows that how Pakistan establishment tends to have this broad brush about Kashmir.
Right.
It's an old sense of history about Kashmir where it wants to equate, where it sees all these different conflict points with one lens. I think this does erode the credibility of Pakistan, and it also tells you that Pakistan is under pressure.
Right. Well, before I ask my next questions, I'd like to invite questions from our viewers, and let me also tell you, when I'm looking at my phone, it's to monitor your questions, so please don't think I'm sort of distracted from this conversation at all. Pranab, also China on Friday refused to join efforts with Pakistan to internationalize the Kashmir issue. It said it's to be resolved bilaterally. Does it show a different pattern emerging?
China has always maintained that position, It has kind of said our good offices are available, but it's a bilateral issue. I think that's a position which even the United States of America has maintained. So China is trying to just emulate that process. So that position. So I don't think more needs to be read into that beyond.
Right. Well, we know India is likely to exercise its right to respond tonight, as per the Indian Standard Time. What can we expect there?
Another round of bluster. See, both sides get, I think, 2 opportunities for right to reply, and each year we exhaust those 2 opportunities. What's important is what's happening in the larger context. We have, I think, James Mattis. He's coming here to India. Then we have a big conversation on Afghanistan happening in India. It's India, US, Afghanistan. There's a lot of stuff happening outside the UN this week, which will determine the kind of pressure pods which are applied then on Pakistan. I think those are sequence of events are worth watching as we go along, because now the squeeze is coming on Pakistan, particularly after Trump's own speech on the South Asia strategy.
Right. Well, let me take a viewer question here. This is from Subhash Sharan at Sharan Sahib is the Twitter handle. Well, it's more of a comment really, Pranab. Viewer says 2 nations are engaged in a WWF curtain raiser statecraft. One is important to the US and the other is for wooing Russia. Well, this viewer has also clarified that he's sending an early note because he's traveling at 6 p.m. So thank you so much for tuning in early. Would you like to comment on this comment?
Well, WWF would be a little too extreme, but yes, I'll just repeat the point that it is indeed ritualistic. I don't think there's one camp about US or Russia. This is typical India-Pakistan.
Right.
It just goes to show that how uninnovative we've become at the UN in the last decade or so.
Right. Well, let me bring in the question of Muhammad Ali Jinnah. This, of course, Pranab, you would be able to put it in context. I will, for our viewers, quote what External Affairs Minister Sushma Swarajs said in response to the Pakistan PM's claim that the nation was following Jinnah's foreign policy based on peace and friendship. She said, I would like to remind him that while it remains open to question whether Jinnah Sahib actually advocated such principles, what is beyond doubt is that India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has, from the moment he took his oath of office, offered the hand of peace and friendship. So essentially, this stand on Jinnah, she's saying it's debatable whether he at all put forth this particular foreign policy. Does it show any kind of shift?
Yeah, I think there's a subtle shift, and purely from a domestic political point of view, particularly from a BJP point of view. The kind of line which Mr. L.K. Advani took on Jinnah, and we know that piece of history when he also visited Pakistan. Clearly, the Modi government is moving away from that position. It, in fact, is questioning Jinnah's own approach post-independence, because following from this line also comes the line about what have you done since independence, and the headline point about you created jihadi and terrorist factories, whereas we made IITs, blah, 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 blah. So there is a huge legacy issue which is being questioned over here, a legacy which the BJP under Advani sought to at least make peace with, is being reopened very subtly, and a distancing is being done, which is a space to watch out for. It's a message in there.
Right. Well, does this, the fact that the government took such a staunch position against Pakistan at an international forum like the UNGA, does it give the government a certain leg up domestically?
I think every government has taken a strong position. So I wouldn't go to the extent of giving a leg up or not. It is consistent with the policy which they have followed. But having said that, I will again come back. It would be unfair on Sushma Swaraj's speech if we don't take the rest of the points which she makes about the efforts made for dialogue and the fact that dialogue is open. And actually, it is Pakistan's statement, Maliha Lodhi's statement, which says that India, there is no question of a composite or a comprehensive dialogue until Kashmir issue is resolved. So I think there we would like to see some kind of pressure coming on Islamabad, A, to take action on terror, and B, maybe take the dialogue option which was there earlier more seriously.
Right. Well, to wrap up, Pranab, let me ask you a very layperson question. What is the relevance of all of this being said on a platform like UN? Is it relevant at all now beyond just the symbolic?
except that the United Nations has a history of Kashmir to it and all of that, I think United Nations has become more and more symbolic. And this happens every year. And I think, I don't know about Islamabad, but definitely taking on from what Sushma Swaraj herself said, that the path of progress and development which India took, for that very reason, it's about time we start dropping this Wagah ritual, at least start thinking about dropping this Wagah ritual. It serves no foreign policy purpose. It just makes us look like, we are involved in a tit for tat. And it means more for the Pakistanis than it means for India in many ways. So why offer that moment even from an Indian standpoint? Its utility as a foreign policy tool is limited, and just one days of headlines at the end of the day.
Right, well, expect more bluster, as Pranab said, when India exercises its right to respond tonight at the UNGA. That was Pranab putting in context this entire slugfest really that has happened between India and Pakistan in the last 2 days. Thank you so much for watching and for sending in your questions.